This video is going to be all about running records. Hi everyone, welcome to Talk and Chalk. I'm Beck, I'm an assistant principal in Southwest Sydney, and this video is going to be me sharing my tips and advice on doing running records in the classroom. There are going to be lots of links shared, so just so you know, my description is all in the, the links and everything are in my description below. There's a little arrow button, I think you click down and then you can see all of my links to like social media, but I'm also going to be sharing links to resources, articles, and hopefully if it works, I'm going to share a little section on my Google Drive that will have some documents that will be useful for you. I think you can find these all on the internet anyway though. If you can't access it, just let me know. Send me a message via social media, I always answer. So, I've been doing running records for 7 years, I want to say, maybe a little bit less. Originally, all I did when I started teaching was benchmarking, and that was because that was what the school did at the time. And we were using a different system to PM readers, but it was just a modified version of PM readers. But the benchmarking kit was the kit that held the books with the test in it, and you just went, when it was time to test the kids, you know, at the end of the term, pick out the book, pick out the photocopied test paper that had the words, the text from the book on it, and you just sit there and tick and cross and do all the marking on it. Personally, it frustrated me when I was doing it, and it frustrated me because of some specific texts that really frustrated me. So for example, one, it was called The Boy with Two Shadows, and it was just so intensely inferential that the kids really struggled to even grasp the concept of the book, let alone being able to read it for meaning. Any meaning. It was always one of those books where it's like, oh god, that kid didn't pass the other book and now I have to test them on this one the next time, and it just sucks. And another example was one of the lower levels. It was around Kinder Year 1, and I remember it was all about the zoo. I can't remember what the title was, but it was about the zoo. And at this time I was teaching in a very low socioeconomic area where the kids at that age had never been to the zoo. So they really struggled to get through it. And when you go to the zoo, they're all of those exotic animals. So, you know, when they start kindy, we start them with Australian animals usually, and they've been exposed to basic exotic animals like, you know, elephants, lions, that's it. But, you know, you come across the word, you know, gazelle. There's no way they can decode it without ever having seen that word. They can't use the picture to decode it, and they just struggled. And it was all because they had never had access to this text prior to being tested. It's kind of like someone giving you a chemistry textbook and saying, read this and now answer questions for me. No. So anyway, if you've ever done reading recovery or L3 or any, I suppose, explicit guided reading, professional learning, you've probably been shown how to do a running record before. If you haven't been shown, that's okay. This is still something that you can easily take on board and use to inform your programming and how you're going to differentiate for your students' needs. So what I did was I did a running record with both my son and my daughter. It doesn't give you too much information because they're both good readers, but it kind of gives you an idea of how you can do a running record. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the first video, which was my daughter, and we just used this book here, Wizard of Oz. It's an old one. I don't even know how old this was printed. So it's not a PM book, but this shows you that you can do a running record on any text as long as it has already been exposed to the child beforehand. The whole point of doing a running record is not to get a score, it's to inform your teaching practices. So you will calculate a percentage of what they got to help give you some of that information, but it's what comes out of that actual reading process that will inform you the most. I'm just trying to find a year on this. 1994. Looks older than that, that's for sure. So let's just quickly switch to the video of my daughter. Okay, so today you're going to read something for me so we can do an example of testing reading. Yep. So what book have you got?
I've got The Wizard of Oz.
Just from our bookshelf, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's not one of the leveled ones from school, but that's okay, we can use it anyway. So you've read this before, what's it about?
Well, it's about 5 characters who went on an adventure. There's a steel man who needs oil to power. There's a lion. There's a scarecrow. There's a little girl named Dorothy, and there's Dorothy's dog.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I've got the little booklet that I would normally use at school for testing, where I'd have your name on the front, and then I'm going to put the title, the date, and if there's a level. But it's a bit hard to do holding both and then doing that, so we're going to try and bribe Daddy to video. So hang on. Okay, so remember, all I'm going to do is do some ticking and writing and stuff. You don't need to worry about what I'm doing here. You just read like normal up to that spot down at the bottom there. Okay? All right.
Dorothy lived in the midst of the great Canis prairies with her Uncle Henry, who was a farmer, and her Auntie Em, who was his wife. Their house was small, just one room with 4 walls, a floor and a roof. Uncle Henry and Auntie Em had a big bed in one corner, and Dorothy had a little bed in another corner. Under the house, Uncle Henry had dug a small dark hole called a cyclone cellar. The family would go in the cellar through a trapdoor in the middle of the floor to escape the great whirlwinds that sometimes swept across the flatlands of Canas. Life was hard. When Dorothy... That's all.
That's okay, you can stop there.
Isn't Nora reading that book?
Yeah. Yes, she is, buddy.
Fishies. I love all fishies.
Kansas.
Oh my god. Okay, so no, it's not a cross if you don't read it the same way. So I'm just putting in here. You said the word Canis. Have a look at Canis for me in the book. Can you point to it?
Canis. Kansas.
Kansas. How do you know it's Kansas?
Cause there's an S after N.
Yeah. Okay. So that
And I
means...
didn't see it there. I'm such a noob.
No, hang on. I'm just trying to zoom this in there. Sorry, I'm just putting Kansas under there because I missed it. And the word next to it here. Kansas. You kind of said prairies, I think is how you said it. Do you have another look at that one for me?
What did you know how to say?
Prairies?
Prairies. So the prairies is kind of like an open sort of grassy area. So we can look at that one later. That's all right. And just have a look down here for me because you started reading a little bit fast at the end. Down here. That sometimes swept across the...
Flatlands?
Yeah, and you did say flatlands. You went back and corrected it. So you said floor at first, and then you said flatlands, which means you corrected it yourself. You reread it, and then you fixed it up. So that was really, really good. So happy with 109 words?
Yeah, I'm happy with it.
Yeah, that's good. And so now how do you pronounce where it is? Kansas, yeah.
I don't know why I'm sitting on the kitchen cupboard.
Because I think you're trying to get away with it because we're doing a video, cheeky girl. Thanks for helping me with reading.
You're welcome. Bye.
Okay, so you can see from that video, I just tested using this. This is what I always use. At the beginning of the year, I get a stack of exercise books and then I cut them in half. So this was a full-length exercise book. I don't think I kept the other half around it. All I did was I cut it in half. I put the kids' names on the front. And then when I open up to the inside page here, I always put a little note saying what their reading level was at the end of the year before. So term 4, whatever data the teacher has collected, they were on PM level 8. I write down PM level 8, end of 2017. And then what I do is I make a note if they were on reading recovery, if they were on the LST load, or if there was anything else like SLSO support or whatever. So I put that on there just as a note because, you know, as the year goes on, I'm going to probably forget which kids were on the reading recovery load the year before or which kids were on LST 2 years ago or something like that. So just a couple of little notes on there. And then all I do is I put the title, the level, and the date. And then this is where I do my running record. I know some people do it on templates. which I will show you. I do have a copy of the proper running record template that has all the lines and everything on it, but quite frankly, that's excessive use of paper to me. Bits get lost, you end up having to staple it, put it in a book or whatever. I love this because I can pick it up, I can show it to the kids use it as a reflection, I can show it to parents if we have parent-teacher interviews, if I've got to talk to my instructional leader about how they've been developing over the years or what areas I've been working on. It's all there in one book, easy to pick up. And this is something the kids are not scared of. This is not scary. A test paper is something that's different. Sometimes it's overwhelming and they know it's a test. When I pick this up and they've written their own name on it, they don't care. They're like, oh, Mrs. doing our ticks again. That's fine. So, like you saw, I asked my daughter, had she read it before? She had read it before. And, you know, because I'm not doing proper structured guided reading groups with my daughter, I just got her to give me a bit of an orientation on what the book is to refresh her memory. So you can see lots of ticks on there. She's a fluent reader. And what I did was in the sections where she got a word incorrect, the correct word was at the bottom and what she said was at the top. And you saw me go back through it with her. And then at the bottom here. So down here where she corrected herself, I put SC for self-correct. And then all I do is I calculate her percentage. So there were 112 words in the amount that she read. She got 109 correct. So she got 97.3%. At this point, this is an easy text for her. This is the point where I would go, she needs to go up, especially considering she was so fluent. She read that in like 2 minutes. So, I mean, if you've got a timer near you when you're doing running records, just stick the timer on as the kids read, because even if she got all of those things correct, if it took her 10 to 15 minutes to read that, she's not fluent and she shouldn't be reading necessarily at that level, because just because she can actually decode it and say it doesn't mean that it's in context or that she's understanding it or that the comprehension is there. So usually I ask comprehension questions as well, but in your guided reading groups, you'll know what their comprehension is like as you go throughout the week. So what I'm going to do quickly is I'm going to flip the camera around and I'm going to show you what the what do you call it? Symbols and annotations and everything are. So I'm just going to flip over now. Okay, so I'm going to share this document with you. You don't have to worry about writing any of this down. You'll see this is the running record conventions. So you'll see an accurate reading is ticks. If they substitute, you know, this is making a mistake. So the word was went, but they said want. So you put the correct word at the bottom and the incorrect one at the top there. If they repeat something, it's not incorrect, but remember, this is analysing their reading. So you just put an R. I put the, I put an arrow even if it's one word, just so I know. But if they repeat the sentence, then the arrow goes back to where it was in the sentence that they started repeating it. So like if the sentence was, she went to, but then the student says, she went to, you're just putting the arrow there to show that they repeated it. And that's because in context, they are decoding something there. They're trying to do something. Self-correction was the SC. So here is an example of them going back and correcting. So they've said, want to go to the, went to go to the. If they omit something, so they just completely skip a word, it's just a little line. If they add a word in, they insert one, then you put the word in, but then put a line at the bottom because the word doesn't exist. Sometimes they're really, really struggling and you've told them, you know, you give it a go, mark that down so that you've let them know that you've prompted. And if you've given them the word because they're super struggling, you just put their T for told. I usually put TT, teacher told. If they've appealed, like if they've said to you, oh, miss, I don't know, can you help me? You just put an A that they've appealed for help, T that you've told them, and then R, maybe they've gone back and corrected it. And if you've told them, try that again. So let's say they've said a sentence and you've gone, hang on a second, that's complete gobbledygook. It's too noisy in here and I think they've gotten confused. How about you try that again? And that's that one. Now, I'll just show you another document. Is it this one? This one here. This has another way to describe it as well, so you can see it in the sentence. It's the exact same thing, but it just shows the sentence underneath so you can get a bit of an idea of what it looks like when you're marking it down. So I will share all of these with you. Okay, so to get a bit of an idea of what it looks like when there's mistakes made, I got my son to come and read as well, and he read this one. Again, not another PM book. They just like reading the Minecraft zombie books. And I flipped to a section where I thought would be good just to get some ideas. So we started here on page 9. Doesn't have to be the beginning of the book. It's up to you. And I got him to do a running record as well. I had pulled him away from the Wii U at the time to do it, so he was a little apprehensive to do it, but it showed him making mistakes, so I'm going to show you anyway, even though he sounds a bit annoyed that I've pulled him out to read. So we'll flip to that video now and then I'll show you some of his information. Okay, so Logan, what's this book?
Minecraft Zombie.
And have you read this one before? Yeah, you read this one before. That's okay. You did. All right, don't worry, this won't be hard. Ready? So I'm going to do ticks on here, and Anara's going to hold it.
Yep.
Okay? All right, hang on. Here you go, Nara, you hold it.
Okay.
Nara, you hold. Ready? It's recording already, so put it over the book. Okay, so Logan's just going to start with Tuesday. Okay. Oh, sorry, Nara, I bumped you. Okay, go, Logan.
Well, it's a scary day today, so I have to go out and scare some villagers again. I was told the time it brought.
That's okay. I'm going to put a but. You said but. Okay, let's keep going.
Sorry,
Oh, good boy.
Sometimes it can be fun. One time I creeped up behind the villager and put my arms out in front of me and said, it really scared him. Actually, he was so scared he ran.
Good, keep going. You're doing good. One more page and then we're done.
I lied and dropped his sword. Took away took it as a and now I have it hanging upon my wall. Another time, if I was friendly mode, and I said, "Hit to a villager," he fainted. I think it was breath. Mom always tells me not to brush my teeth, but today I forget and did away. And anyway, that's it.
Hang on, Logan, come back, buddy.
Wow.
Look at all those ticks that you got.
Wow.
That's a really good job. So we can see self-corrected here, and then self-corrected there. So you can see from that, and I'm just flipping to his page, I did the same thing. Title, level was a question mark because we don't know what it is, and the date. And this is what it looked like. I put a line down the middle there to separate it. So you can see how my ticks have a different amount on each line because it matches the amount of words that's actually on each line in the text. So for example, the first line here says, well, it's a scare day today, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's only 7 ticks. I've only ticked because that's where it is. And this helps me because if I want to go back and check a word that he did incorrect, I can count on the lines where they're up to or see where the paragraphs are. So I mean, you can tick according to paragraphs if you want to be able to see it. Keeping in mind, you only need 100 words to do a running record on any text. That's all you need. Now those lower levels have smaller amounts. So you just mark based on what's in there. But if you've got a bigger text, you don't need to go beyond 100. Your percentage is out of 100, just stick to 100 words. So these ones were a little bit over. So his had 119 words in the amount that he read, and he got 116 correct. So that's 97.4%. So easily I would say, that's too easy, he needs to move up a level. But you can see there where he only said the word, he only said the sound "b" instead of boring, but then he went back, that self-corrected it. there, he went back and repeated a word. He didn't have anything correct, but I've noted down that he repeated it. Over here, he said away, and the word was it, but he self-corrected the word, and he did it straight away. Souvenir, he couldn't quite pronounce properly, so that's marked down as a mistake. And then these ones here, he was rushing at the end, you could hear it. So the word was in, and he said is. The word was high, and he said hit. So that's him rushing and not looking at it properly. And then at the bottom, instead of saying anyway, he said away. Again, just rushing. And that would be the reflection I would have with him afterwards. When I have these in the class, this is a document my kids work from. This is not a secret thing that's just for the teacher that hides away in the drawer. We use this and we talk about it. And really, for them to be able to see, I got all of that correct, because as soon as they have one mistake, they feel like they've ruined the whole sentence, the whole page sometimes. It feels like there's just a big X through the entire page. So for them to be able to see all of those ticks makes them feel successful. They get to see, oh, hang on, and I tell them, SC means you corrected yourself. That's a good thing. That's not actually a problem. That's a good thing. So, and I point to them, you've got 5 times on this. You self-corrected yourself. That means you're editing yourself. That means you understand what you're doing. So it's a good tool for reflection with the kids. And then obviously I need to make adjustments based on that. So if you see the formal document, I wonder if I can put it up here. Sorry, I'm just clicking away on different things here. I just don't have to, okay, no, I will. All right, I'm going to flip the camera again. There's lots of editing in this video. I'm going to flip the camera and show you what the other document looks like, because that's when you'll start to do a bit more of a detailed analysis. This is what the formal running record sheet looks like. And like, this is why I don't use it. It's just got so much information there that's unnecessary to have in every single one. Name, date, date of birth, their age and their years and months for their age, the school, the recorder, and then we've got 3 different text titles there: error over running words, ratios, self-correction ratios, and then we've got an analysis here. And then this is where you would do your ticking like I'm doing in the book. But over here, you've got your count of how many errors did they make and how many self-corrections did they make, and then you're analyzing it. So this analysis obviously is where it gets more detailed, and I've got some readings that will help you with that. But I mean, look, this takes 2 pages. How many? So yeah, I'm not using that. I might use that if I had to do it for a formal assessment to give the bit of paper to my instructional leader. I'm not using that for every single one. Now I'm just going to show you another one. Again, I will show these with you. So this gives you your error ratio and percentage. So you can see here, above 90, anything above 90 is where we're working at. So really anything above 95 means that it's an easy text and they should be moving up. The 94, 95%, maybe 93, depending on the text, that's your instructional level. So that's where they're at. You're going to keep them at that level because that's where they're sort of working their best in to be able to gain new information. Anything lower than 93 is becoming too hard. Really, anything below 89 means that there's something exceptionally wrong there, and you probably shouldn't have even had them on that level in the first place. But it tells you here how to calculate everything and how to do your percentages and stuff. But I mean, if you go back to your high school maths, all I do is I go 109 divided by 112 times 100 is 97.3%. And that's how you can determine it. Okay, I've got some other articles there that I think are worthwhile reading that are just reiterating what I'm saying today, but in more detail. Really, I can't give you all the detail that you would need for this because then the video would be an hour long and we just all lose track of what we're doing. So just to give you that scope of what I do in my classroom though. So I do guided reading like I normally would. The kids have the orientation to the text. We do guided reading groups, and then on a Thursday or Friday, whatever their last reading group session reading with me is, I have this with me when they read. So they don't do choral reading on that last session with me. They're doing it independently, and I usually pick them out one at a time and they read with me like they normally would in a reading session, and I just happen to be ticking along at the same time. And the kids are used to this. It doesn't take long for them to get used to that pattern, and then they don't worry about the book. It doesn't make them anxious. And you just have that same conversation with them where you go, I'm just ticking some of the things that you're reading, and I'm going to write down words that you get stuck on so I know that we can practice those words later. And they're fine with that. I don't do that for any kids that are in the green. So if they're those kids that have reached their expected reading level for that age or grade, I don't do that with them every week. I will read with them and listen to them, and I use my teacher judgment to decide whether or not I need to be doing a running record with them, because most of the time, if they're at that level, it means then that they need to expand their reading, not just push up levels. There's no point just constantly pushing up levels, because especially if you're in PM levels, because those levels are designed for specific, grammar focus, language focus, and content as well. So the content in those older books are designed to be for kids at an older age. And that doesn't mean that they don't have anything to read. That's when you get quality texts and you do, the, what's it called, Super 6 strategies and really some in-depth comprehension, but that's a whole other video. However, my kids that are kind of in the yellow, kids that are almost on target, I do it with them every single week. And the kids that are in the red, I do it with them every single week. And like I said, they get used to it. It sounds like it would be extremely time consuming, but I find that if I break it up over that Thursday, Friday, because they really only need to be with you 3 or 4 times a week, depending on their levels, there will be that chance to split the kids that actually need to do a running record with you over the Thursday, Friday. So when you sit down with those kids and do that, have that data there, make sure it's done. You could probably tick off who you did a running record with just in your program, like your guided reading program, that way that you would do it, just so you know and you can keep track of it. Another way to keep track of it is just pick it up and look at it. If it's got lots of white pages in it, chances are you've been missing out on some kids doing their running records. It's also a good way to see if there's any habitual absences that are affecting their reading. Sometimes you think, why hasn't that kid moved up a reading level in a few weeks? They've always been away on a Thursday when I normally do a running record with them, and just catch up with them at a different time. I have to say though, it creates such a great way to be able to target needs. So like you could see with my son there, he was rushing it. So I would want to make sure that the next time I read with him, he's comfortable, he's ready, he's calm, he knows what he's doing, and see if he's still rushing through words like that. Is he skimming too far ahead or scanning down too far? Is that why he's missing it? He said hit instead of high. He obviously didn't realize that didn't make sense in terms of meaning. So why did he skim over that? And that's what my next week's focus would be. And I would probably pick a text that would enable me to be able to focus on that a bit better. I can't think of anything else that way. So when you do your analysis though, obviously you take into account, is it meaning, is it visual, is it syntax or anything like that? And I think I have it, sorry, I'm just looking over to see if I have a document that tells you the analysis of that, because I'm sure I do. And I'm just looking at my computer. Yes, I think I do. So I'll include that in the description below as well. So there's going to be a bunch of PDFs linked down there, and I'll try and link you to the Google Docs as well so that you've got access to that. If you've never done running records before though, just start with a few kids, and maybe not doing your hard kids, because you saw me frantically ticking away. It takes a while to get to that pace. Actually, it might be easier if you do start with one of your lower kids first. If they're a slow reader, practice doing it that way. Practice with a teacher. It does take a while, but once you've got into that groove, you just tick, 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 error, analysis, and you're done. And it goes pretty smoothly once you get into that routine. So if you get to the point where you think, oh my God, this is too much work, it's taking too long, I'm not going to get through every kid. You shouldn't be getting through every kid every single week. You need to get through every target kid, and every kid that's struggling. And obviously if you feel like you've got a whole class that is below the benchmark where they need to be, then pick your battles. Pick some focus kids to work on first, try and get them up to where they need to be, and then focus on some other ones and get them where they need to be. Or maybe just pick a group. it's really hard to film what I was doing because I had to get hubby to help, and then my daughter helped film as well, and you can't really see what I'm ticking with my hands there. But hopefully that's helped you just get an idea of how I do that in my classroom. I find it really beneficial just in terms of informing what I'm going to do with that child for the next couple of weeks. And it's really good for my programming as well because it's all reciprocal. So what I'm doing with reading links into comprehension and then leads into writing so that I can tie it all in together and see how I can really enhance those literacy learning opportunities for the kids. I feel like I've rushed through all of that because there's just so much information about running records. So if you have a question, please pop it in the comments below. Send me a message on social media. I always answer and I'm happy to help you where I can. If you have the opportunity to read through those documents, I highly recommend taking the time to do that just because it just gives you that good background knowledge. The big name that you want to know for anything to do with guided reading or running records is Marie Clay. Type in running records or reading and Marie Clay into Google and you'll spend the next week reading some wonderful journal articles and research documents. Okay, I'm going to leave it there though because I feel like this is going to be a super long video. My button down here, if you want to subscribe, you just hover over that and click to subscribe. I'm going to put another video at the top there and hopefully this has been beneficial for you and not too overwhelming. Thanks guys, bye.